Well, not only do they not have that, one of the things I've been studying for the last 2 years, because everybody knows me as a very energetic human being, is I've been trying to be more calm with my emotions. Because when you're talking in the bigger real estate deals that we're doing, the bigger businesses that we're building, the construction business, all these things, these are big deals. And so like they don't happen overnight, and so you can be like I'm like the little chihuahua that like gets too excited when the people come home. Like, it's like, okay, like great, because at the end of the day, the more stoic, that you can be, the neutral thinking is kind of what I've been working on, because your emotions, like you said, can benefit you, but they can also hurt you in the end too, because your expectations and your attachment to it are too big.
Your network is your net worth. Come listen to some of the most successful people I know share invaluable knowledge, stories, and advice in real estate, business, and beyond. This is Weiss Advice. Whether you want to take your business or personal life to the next level, look no further. Welcome back to Weiss Advice. I am your host on this podcast journey, Yona Weiss, and today with me, I have Austin Linney. What's going on, Austin?
Much, man. Thanks for having me here. Super excited.
I am super excited too to have you on the show. I mean, it's great. I was on your show, which is anyone who's interested in getting just blown away with a podcast. Check out the Construct Your Life podcast. And recently, you just started a new podcast with a partner, Anthony Mattino, and that's called
Brain Dump.
Brain Dump.
We study the psychology of success.
You study the psychology of success. Awesome. So let's reconstruct that for a second, because you're about constructing your life, and you by trade, you do a lot of coaching, right? You help people construct their life in one sense or another, right?
Yeah. I think one of the highlights of the podcast and kind of the theme for the podcast is so many people build a business and then build a lifestyle around it, instead of building a lifestyle and then building a business around it. And it's a singular change of the word in the sentence, but it means so much more, because the mechanisms, what people don't understand is that there's an interesting concept between modeling and mimicking, right? And like, hey, that guy's life is great. He's wholesaling. He's making $80,000 a month. I need to go do that. Okay, well, hold on. Let's pull apart his life. He's 22. He lives with 4 other dudes. He's got no kids, and they're on the phone 24/7. Right? I'm not at that point in my life, and I don't want to do that. And my background in the Airbnb space is everybody sees it. And they say, oh, we're just going to do that because other people are making money. And what people don't understand is when you're, and sometimes you don't know till you get in. So that's very important. But ultimately, you have to understand that every move that you make, every business contact that you take on, every coaching client I take on, I'm in. I'm all in. So that means good, bad, or indifferent. I've saddled up for that. And I don't think enough people look in business context to understand, like, what is this going to do to my lifestyle?
Right. But I think it's partly a catch-22, because you oftentimes don't know what type of life you really do want to lead. I don't think a lot of people, especially young people, don't spend enough time thinking about that. You think about what you've kind of been taught, which is, got to get a job. Why do you need a job? Well, I need to have money. Why do you need to have money? I need to have a place to live and buy food. Why do you need to do that? So I can live. Why do you need to do that? So I can work. And wait a second, that's a circular, right? Like, you're not actually going anywhere or living for any purpose necessarily. And I think that's really the starting point. And then, like you said, like reconstructing it, if you can take the time to figure out, or take the time to think about that, what am I living for? Like, what's this life about? At that point, it probably is easier to then, okay, well then what do I want to do? And does that consist of, do I have the luxury to do whatever I want to do? No, probably not. For a lot of young people, you actually, a lot of times do need to work to a certain degree, just to have some money to have those choices and have have more opportunities.
And I think we become a society of answers instead of thinking, right? If you ask me a question, I need to have an answer within 5.2 seconds, right? And nobody's allowed to say, well, give me a second, right? But what I'm seeing, especially in the young people, and especially people that are new to investing, is they're trying to invest to hit a home run. Like this is going to take me out of where I am and it's going to make my life. And what you realize talking to enough rich people is there's always going to be another goal. There's always going to be another, it doesn't matter how far you get in business. So the question is who are you showing up as every day as a person? Do you, goals are great, but do you stand on top of your values? Like what you stand for? And if you show up in that aspect, it doesn't matter what you're doing. You can weather any storm or any economic shift. You're going to show up as yourself.
Yeah. Well, back to my first point is that most people don't spend the time to figure out what their values are.
Yeah.
Because, values, unfortunately, are often dictated to us by the society that we live in and we take for granted. I mean, this goes back to a very old, kind of argument, which is that, if you grew up in communist China, like you're waving a communist flag. And if you grow up in, in wherever in Haiti, right, you're poking voodoo dolls and all kinds of stuff with that. Essentially, wherever it is, you're going to be given a lot of your kind of preconceived values without taking the time to kind of explore and, read and educate yourself and think outside the box or think outside where, the life that you've kind of grown up in.
We have a guy that is a friend of mine and a mentor that was just on the podcast on Brain Dump that I really respect, growing a huge business. And he said that he believes that most people are walking around living injected values of other people. And it was kind of the aha moment for me, because it is the truth. I mean, and whether that be goods, right? And so one of the things, the jokes about me is when you come coach with me, there's a couple things that happen. One, you either go to Europe or you go on a really long vacation, you move, you travel, you change jobs, because I'm far less concerned with the long-term play of like where you're going to live or anything. But what I'm trying to do is I'm trying to get you out of what you've been doing over and over again. Like, let's shake it loose. Let's get a little weird. Let's travel for a month for work. Let's get in a different coffee shop. Let's drive down a different street. Like, let's just give it a little bit. And that's what I suggest to every young kid.
That's awesome.
Just work, try different jobs. You're not going to know, because the lack of not knowing, like I moved to Nashville, right? Like 5 years ago for like a year. I didn't love it. I'm being serious. And I came back to Texas. But if I wouldn't have done it, I would be here wondering, well, what if? Now, that being said, last week I went back to Nashville. I liked it. Cities change, people change who they are. And I think people, they put their thoughts on it, and that's the only way that it can be. But everything is always shifting. Business shifts. Like, there's at one point you lived in the States. Now you live over there. And what you need, right? This is what I was telling somebody the other day. What that businessman needs is different than what I need as a 38-year-old. I mean, he might be 50 years old and he doesn't want to do those things. Well, I'm happy to add value to his life by doing those things. But that's not what people are looking at, because they think one box fits all. It doesn't work that way.
Absolutely. And I love that you give that advice to people just to change their location and change their routine, because that's so powerful. We're kind of stuck in a rut, and and that rut can translate in a lot of ways and throughout our life. But oftentimes, like, I get most inspired when I go, out to the mountains or go, to the beach, or just to kind of get out in nature and traveling. You see different things, you interact with different people, and it brings out in you different things that you never really knew were there. Kind of faces, situations that you're not used to, and kind of that brings out those challenges where you kind of have to face yourself in a lot of ways and see, oh, this is how I'm reacting. And I never faced this situation before. This is how I'm reacting. This is how I'm dealing with this. Now is a place for growth.
The absence, especially adults, I just wrote about this 2 days ago. The absence of wonder and curiosity has been removed from the adult society, because we want to know what it's going to look like. We need to know what next month is going to look like. And at the end of the day, you have no idea. We didn't know that COVID was going to come. We didn't know that everybody was going to go virtual. We didn't know all these things were going to happen. But I tell you what I can do. I can, when I decided to get sober and lose weight and change my life around, I cling to my daily habits because that's what I could lean on no matter if I was getting divorced, no matter if I got laid off. And if you have that rock solid foundation that's yours and yours alone, and you're not dictated off of, well, my boss treated me that way and everything. Like, we've lost this space where we don't realize that everybody around us is dealing with something. Like, you know what I'm saying? Yeah. Like, and we don't know ultimately what's going on in their life. And so we get angry. And so, like, I try to look at everybody through a lens of compassion. Like, okay, I get it. Like, you know, your marriage could be falling apart. And what can I do? Who can I show up as? Can I give them the space? One of the reasons that people love me as a coach is because my stories are hard to beat. Like, you know what I'm saying? They kind of feel normal when they talk to my crazy butt. You know, they're like, dude, ooh, you know, and it like gives them this sense of security that this dude's not going to judge me. Because that's what I found the most is that people are ultimately deathly afraid of judgment. Like, it's this, I don't want you to look at me that way because then I'll have to feel bad about myself. And instead of giving them a space to be open and honest with what they're going through.
Yeah, no, that's so true. We're oftentimes, that's probably one of the biggest things we're afraid of. I mean, like, afraid of judgment, and that translates itself in so many different ways in life and business. But let me,
sure,
if you don't mind, well, can we pick out some of these stories of overcoming challenges?
Here he goes. Yeah, the good news is I got them right in my holster. So because I share so openly on my podcast. You know, I was talking to somebody the other day, and you know, me and my dad, we haven't really talked for many years, probably like 20 years, give or take, on and off. My parents got divorced when I was 17, but I realized that my dad was the first entrepreneur I ever knew. Like, he was a dentist. 40 years, he just sold his practice. But when I was 17, I was not doing great in school, and my parents said it was either military school or it was I had to move to Beaumont, which was like 3 hours from Houston in the country. So I moved out there, and then like 6 months later, my parents said they were getting divorced. So I associated that with blaming myself for the divorce. And then when I stepped into the restaurant business, I got introduced to drugs and alcohol, cocaine and methamphetamines. And, you know, you're young, you're 18, you're not understanding the aspects of emotion. You're looking for some kind of something to weather the storm of this. So there's acceptance within the drug community, right? Like, oh, here's us just doing drugs together, and we're both all in it. And so, you know, the crazy thing is I was still getting everything done. That doesn't mean that you're getting things done the right way. Like, I'm still going to work and everything, but the Fridays and the Saturdays, you know, start turning into Mondays and Tuesdays, and start turning into Wednesdays. And I wound up staying up for 8 days straight. And I was just not in a good place. I lost like 25 pounds. And I had an ex-girlfriend come to me, and she's like, dude, that's not working for me. Like, you look terrible. You haven't eaten anything. So I was like, all right, I was done with like the methamphetamines, and I packed up all my stuff and I moved to Austin, and I quit the hard drugs, but I was still drinking. And this proceeded in like 2 months later, I wound up getting in a car wreck. Shouldn't have been driving. Didn't hurt anybody, but just put myself in a bad situation, totaled my car. So there you had lost my job, lost my car, you know, just bad news, and wound up going back home and being at home for like a month. And I was still drinking. And my mom wound up kicking me out, and my dad cut me off on all the credit cards. So I had like a bag of clothes and my bad attitude. That's all I had. Mm-hmm. And I had a friend pick me up, and you know, I cried for a little bit, and he was like, kind of shook me, and he's like, all right, dude, like, we're going to figure it out step by step. And he got me a job. I was I was laying brick and tile in Texas in the middle of the summer. So that was a blast.
Yeah.
Not really. That'll make you really think about some life choices. And then I wound up having nowhere to live. So a friend's brother gave me a closet to live in. So I lived in a closet, no BS, a closet that was underneath the stairs. So I slept on a single mattress and had my bag of clothes, and I worked about 50 hours a week, 60 hours a week, and laid tile and lived off of $40 a month in food and ramen noodles and ham sandwiches. And, going from a 3,500 square foot house on a golf course with a pool to a 25 square foot closet, they'll make you look at some life choices. Mm-hmm. And I wound up saving up some money and getting my restaurant job back, and proceeded to be a functioning alcoholic for the next 16 years. Never thinking that it was a big deal. I worked in hospitality and hotels, and, it's so accepted in that world that you don't even think anything of it, and wound up joining a mastermind full of high-level real estate investors. And a couple of those guys were in recovery, and they were 9 months and 12 months sober, and they were my age. And I was like, oh, this is a thing? Like, you can actually be sober and be successful? And they're like, yeah, we were just blacking out and it wasn't good. And I was like, oh. So they gave me the permission to try. And that was 2.5 years ago. And so I've been sober ever since, and I've lost like 70 pounds. And now we run a charity where we help people who have been through recovery, who've been to rehab, and we help them, teach them real estate and entrepreneurship. And it's the greatest joy in the world, because if you have not been through it, it's very hard to understand the aspects of the addiction. Yeah. And to have somebody that's been through it to be there with no judgment. And you can really see when the light bulb switches with these people. Oh man, they're ready to go. And it's just so great to give somebody a second chance at life, because unfortunately, a lot of us don't get out.
Wow. Yeah. So, a very powerful story. Thanks for giving us just the little tidbits of that timeline. But you're so right that a lot of us, and everyone has their own challenges, and everyone's struggles are different. And I think you mentioned this even a few minutes before you started this kind of story, that we all kind of come with our own baggage, and we don't think that we can actually get rid of that. And so we're kind of walking through life, or going through life paralyzed in a lot of ways, because we don't know what our potential is. We think we're being held down by who we think we are and who we think we can become. And I think when you only are opened up to those opportunities, and like you said, it was some people that kind of gave you the opportunity to see things in a different light. That really made the biggest change. I
have a really good friend, a mentor that I look up to, that runs the charity that we work alongside with. And she said this line to me in my podcast, and it made me realize this is what happened to me. She said, when she got divorced and she wasn't in a good place, she said she didn't love herself enough to change. She said, but what she did is she borrowed the belief and the love that her daughters had in her of herself long enough for her to catch up to their belief. And what I realized is when I joined that mastermind, I was around a bunch of high-level individuals that saw something in me that I didn't even know I had. Mm-hmm. And so I hung on to their belief of me, and slowly but surely, their belief of me made me believe it. And then my belief caught up with their belief. And then boom, there you have the transformation.
Wow. And a lot of us really have this in so many different ways. Even if you don't have a physical person, a lot of people, in the community that I come from, and a lot of people throughout the world believe in God and believe in a higher power. And when you believe that, you can see that, yeah, there is someone or something or power that believes in you, because you come from a much higher place, and so you're meant for greater things. And I think all of us are meant for greater things than we can even possibly fathom. But we don't have that, like you said, that belief in ourselves. But you can borrow that, like you said, you can borrow it from a friend, from a mentor. And I think that's part of one of the greatest reasons to have a mentor or a coach, mm-hmm. because in the times that I've had those coaches or those opportunities to be around people that were guiding me, I could see that I was not even like a fathom, like close to where I could become. And I couldn't even realize like to get there, but they saw that. They saw, no, you can get way beyond that.
So I'll share it. I rarely share it in interviews, but I'll share my coaching method to explain to people on a bigger scale how this works. But first I want to say this because it's my tagline in all my events. The number one issue railing against, well, not the number one of the biggest issues railing against America, and the reason people can't change, is they believe that their story doesn't have merit. We all have a story to tell. You have to tell it. And in order for you to tell it, it doesn't control you anymore. When it doesn't control you anymore, you can change. And so how I do that, coaching is nothing more than, I call it, cleaning off the windshield. You have a really muddy, buggy windshield. I'm just scraping it off and showing you who you can be. And so how I do that is we go in and we find out who you are, where you want to go, what you want to do. And then when I find that out and I pinpoint that 6 months, a year from now, I only speak to you as if you're that person already. Mm-hmm. And what happens is my internal belief of who you are drags you along in that scenario until you walk right into it yourself.
Mm-hmm. First of all, that's like the ultimate parenting lesson as well.
You could tell me, yes.
But it's so difficult. That's the challenge of parenting, is that so often we can be caught up in emotions. I mean, we can be caught up in, especially if you're, just bombarded and around it all the time. But that's the ultimate parenting lesson, is to see that child or see that other person for who they can become and speak to them as if they are that. But so that's awesome. That's really what it's all about. But most of the time, most people don't have that in their lives.
Well, not only do they not have that, one of the things I've been studying for the last 2 years, because everybody knows me as a very energetic human being, is I've been trying to be more calm with my emotions. Because when you're talking in the bigger real estate deals that we're doing, the bigger businesses that we're building, the construction business, all these things, these are big deals. And so they don't happen overnight, and so you can be like I'm like the little chihuahua that gets too excited when the people come home. It's okay, great, because at the end of the day, the more stoic, that you can be, the neutral thinking is kind of what I've been working on, because your emotions, like you said, can benefit you, but they can also hurt you in the end too, because your expectations and your attachment to it are too big. So it's kind of this yin and the yang. And that's why having a coach, having somebody that you look up to, a mentor, has explained to me, whether it be aggressively nice or or in my kitchen, it really matters. But that's what it's like to have people around you that you respect, that can have that conversation with you and dial you in.
I found this out, much later in life, I think, as a lot of people do. Like, young people kind of live with this belief, and I think kids, teenagers especially, and I can speak for myself, we don't think about life in terms of there's any purpose or there's any necessarily end to it. It's like the cliche, young people think they'll never die, right? They think, and so there's really no consequences. I think that's why a lot of young people get caught up in addictions and get caught up in these kind of things, because there's no real, people aren't given that purpose in life. And so it's much easier to just kind of escape and not actually try to live and fulfill that purpose. What I'm trying to bring out from this, and I do have a point here, is that for a lot of people who realize these and come to this awareness that we're talking about here later in life, the goal is to be able to become that mentor or that teacher for really anyone and everyone, and especially if you are a parent, for your children. Because, I know I didn't have that a lot in my life when I was a kid for my parents in a lot of ways. And, that's what I'm trying to do now for my kids, but it's still very challenging. But I think only when you can come to that clarity of purpose and meaning in life, and come to at least a level of knowing where you're on the path to where you want to become, you can help others get there. And it's kind of like a parable that it's in an ancient work from a rabbi by the name of Moshe Chaim Luzzatto. He was an Italian rabbi in the 17th and 18th century, and he wrote a book called The Path of the Just. it's an incredible scholarly work in the Jewish world. And one parable that he gives is of the labyrinth, right? When, life, we're going through a maze, we're going through like a labyrinth, and we get caught up and we just hit dead ends and we don't know where we're going, and we get pitfalls and all kinds of things like that. But if you saw that there was someone standing on top and can see every single path, and show you the right choices and the right path to go down, you're still going to be making those moves, but you're having direction from someone who's already been through it, and not only has been through it, but can see exactly where you need to get to. And so it would be stupid, it would be silly not to look to that mentor, to that teacher, to that wise person to show you the way that they've already gone through. You don't need to figure it out all on your own.
Me and my coach talk about this. When you change, when you're deciding to change, it's like going down a hallway with no door handles and the lights are off. And you're like, holy crap, where am I going? And the scary thing is it's so easy to go backwards because that's familiar. Mm-hmm. But I've made a choice, good, bad, or indifferent. What do you want me to do? Do you really want me to go work for somebody? That's not going to go good. And so like, I've chosen this entrepreneurship route. And let me tell you something right now. It's not roses. It's not cool. Like, it's fun. And I get to pick my life and I get to hang around awesome people. But let me make it very clear to you. You're going to have to pave your own way, and you're going to have to go for it. And you're going to have to believe in yourself so much. But here's the great thing. It's all up to you. Yeah. Like what an amazing thing to wake up to every day. Like, nobody's telling me to wake up at 4:30 in the morning. I get to, and I love it. And this is my 7th Zoom call today. And I got 2 more, and I've had a meeting about construction and coaching calls and podcasts. But here's the thing. And this is what I wrote about last week on LinkedIn, is that we're walking around thinking that everything's not our choice. It's all a choice. I get to be on this call with you. I get to go do that other call. You have a choice in life. And Aubrey Marcus and Ed Milet were talking about, listen, you could not eat and you would die, but it's still your choice. And he goes, too many times that everybody's walking around acting like they have a gun to their head, when everything that you do, that conversation, that Zoom call, perfect example, you don't have to scale your business if you don't want to. You don't. You could make $150K a year. You could coach your kids. You could spend family vacations. So who's telling you that you need to take it to 300K? Right. You are, but you're acting and complaining like somebody else is pushing up against you. And I think we need to have the conversation more that everything is a choice. Look, I don't have an option but to impact people, because I went through everything I went through. And now it's on me, like you said, to be the guy guiding. And I'm okay with that. I've made peace with that. It's not an option. And guess what? 12 years from now, it might be different. But when all this went down, when COVID happened and the riots and all this stuff, I thought to myself, how do you truly affect change? Like, how do you, at a scale, how do you affect the most change? And I thought to myself, well, 50-year-old adults, man, they're already stuck in their ways. That's hard. So one of the things that came to mind was middle school and high school kids. And so I have a dream to create funds to invest in middle school and high school businesses, entrepreneurship businesses. And I have a friend who's a big principal, and we want to teach, kids about business and financial literacy. And like, that's the kind of stuff that we as society, no matter where you are, 25, 35, 50, these are the things that we need to be doing more of. If you have something to give, then give it out. Right. And just let it be a message.
That's great. No, that's awesome. That's an awesome idea. I've thought of similar things, and I think we have there's so many opportunities for sharing whatever whatever you have, and especially with the younger people, because they're the future. For sure. And
I agree.
We can continue this, and we can go on for hours. Yeah. I see from just the beginning of our conversation what it feels like here. But I want to transition now to what we call the final 4, Austin, which these are 4 questions that I ask all of my guests. And so the first question for you is, and you may have already alluded to this earlier in the episode, but what's the worst job that you ever had?
So, funny story is my first job. I ever had. I was 16 years old. I worked at a marble slab. Do you have any idea what that is? It's an ice cream place. Think of like a Baskin Robbins. Well, I'm not calling anybody out, but I was the only white guy. It was run by an Indian family, and I had to clean the toilets. Like I had to do all the bad stuff, and the shake thing would blow up, and like I was pretty spoiled. So like me getting my first job at 16 and like slupping up to work and everything like that was not in my cards, But like it didn't matter how much money my dad made. My parents grew up poor, like working when they were 16. And so now I look back on that and I wasn't a fan, but I understand the mechanism of that job. To be honest with you, I loved the restaurant business. Like I think that everything that I'm good at now is from the 9 bajillion conversations that I've had with people from every walks of life. So I think it's actually served me. So
for sure. Well, yeah. Well, that first job definitely doesn't sound like, but it's oftentimes most people who answer this question, it's almost always their first job. Which shows a lot. You learn quickly what you don't want to do, right? So the second question I have for you is, what's a book that you've read that's given you a paradigm shift?
Easy. I bought 50 of them for my clients. It's called What You Say When You Talk to Yourself. It's a $13 on Amazon. It's basically teaches you how to reprogram your subconscious mind. It's amazing. Anybody that's struggling to smoke, negative thoughts, it's really, really good stuff.
Interesting.
Now, that being said, I was just on a podcast and they said the greatest salesman in the world. So I'm really interested to dig into this because apparently it's kind of the same kind of thing. So,
interesting.
Yeah.
Well, I think a lot of success in general, and you and Anthony talk about this on your show, but
yeah,
it's a lot of it has to do with mindset, right? How you think and how you talk to yourself, how you view yourself and how you view the world. And so, yeah, I mean, that really makes a lot of sense why that would be.
The mindset part of it allows you to have a base where everything's possible. Mm-hmm. The aspects of not having that set up doesn't allow you to operate in all the spaces.
Because you're in a prison, basically. I mean, you can't go anywhere if you don't know where.
Now here's the rub. And I get this question from my younger clients all the time. Well, when do you do you have a bad day poorly? When do you doubt yourself? Every day.
Every day.
They go, is every day? I said, yeah, every day. And they go, what do you do? I said, I just tell I don't know if I can cuss, but I said, I just tell the whiny version of me to shut up and I just keep on going forward.
That's right. Yeah.
that's all right. You can do. Yeah.
We all have the struggle inside of ourselves. And that's really the whole, the being in control of your mind and, doing what's right and not what your body or what your subconscious, animal, what we call like the animal soul, the animal self inside of you, kind of what wants to do.
Yes. Love it.
Third question, what's a skill or talent that you would like to learn?
I don't know if I have the patience for it, but I love music and I would really like to be able to play the guitar. I'm just, I want to be that guy that like moseys up to the fire, and like everybody's sitting around, but the aspects of learning at this age, I just don't know, like maybe we just hire somebody to play or something, but I love music. I think, my family, when I grew up, my mom, everybody played an instrument. So music has always been a big mood shifter for me. And kind of sets the tone. I love to put a good playlist together for a party. It's kind of like my thing.
Okay, cool. Yeah, I mean, guitar is great. Guitar is definitely a great instrument. Very versatile.
But right now, I'm just a cowbell. So we're just
Listen, if you got some rhythm, that's already a good start. Fourth and final question: what does success mean to you?
Oh, I just listened to my episode on this the other day for the first time. You know what? That is such a loaded question. I love it. I take this from Ed Milet's speech. He said that when I meet my maker and I envision that next to him is the best version of myself that he created. And when I walk up to that version of myself, that dude claps his hands and he goes, well played, well played. And in my vision, that's the same thing for me. If my why is to lift up and impact everybody around me. if I can walk off this earth and know that maybe the 1,000 or 2,000 people that I helped, they impacted another million, then we did good. We did good. The trappings of success, meaning the financial aspects of it, I've had to shake that loose from me. And don't get me wrong, it's a fight on the day to day, but understanding that ultimately that's not going to take me to where I need to go. And I think you would say the same thing. You probably met plenty of successful people that could tell you that you can have all the money in the world and still be miserable.
Yeah, 100%. There's so many people out there, and it's almost cliche at this point that, you can be successful, have a lot of money and be miserable. But I've actually, when I was a teenager, I had the pleasure of meeting an extremely wealthy person. My mother, I don't know if I ever told this story on the podcast before. I think I made a LinkedIn post about it a long time ago. Maybe it's time to re-bring this story out. I met a guy who, he was pretty close to a billionaire, if not a billionaire. And, this is going back 25 years or so. And he, his family was real estate and they owned franchises and, very, very, very wealthy. And he, living the life, everything. Cars, fancy, everything, houses, mansions. He became paralyzed in an accident on an ATV, in the desert. He was going through it, flipped over, quadriplegic. Okay. He couldn't move his legs, arms, nothing. He was for all intents and purposes, he felt like his life was over. And he, when I met him, he was already walking. And he was able to heal himself through, all kinds of these different techniques and things. I don't remember exactly what those techniques were, but essentially he was able to come out of it. And he still had a limp. And I think one of his arms was a little, limp, but he was essentially, he had grown. And what I learned from him, one of the things that he told me, and I'll never forget this. And it was incredible because he said, I thought money, that's what life was all about. But when I sat on that, hospital bed and saw that I had nothing, none of that money, none of that wealth or anything like that could help me at this point. He said, then he realized it wasn't worth it, right? None of it was worth it. And so he dedicated his life after that to, just giving basically everything away, not everything, but, just giving tremendous amounts of charity and realize that life is much more about, who you can become as a person. And that was, he used the power of his mind in a lot of ways, the mind power to heal himself to that. And there's many, 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 many stories, but that was just one that really stood out to me at that point. And so financial success from that point onwards, I was 15, maybe 14, 15 when that story happened. From that point onwards, I had no interest in money, financial success whatsoever. It never even crossed my mind that I had any interest in, was aiming for. And I think that was a big blessing for me because a lot of my friends just chased after jobs and money and cars and all that kind of stuff. And I had no interest whatsoever. And I think that kind of what led me to a much more religious, spiritual lifestyle that I, kind of became much more so. So that's very grateful for that opportunity.
So powerful. I have a guy that I talk to on a regular basis in Spain, and we're doing some stuff together. And he'll just tell you flat out, he's like, your needs, Austin, they ain't mine. He's like, I lived in Vegas. Worked at Cirque du Soleil for 20 years. And I run every day. He's like an ultra marathon. He's like, I got my house. We're living on solar. My kids are happy. We think that we need all these things, right? I got divorced. I gave up my house. I gave up my dog. I have 7 boxes to my name. And I was on the road last year for 90 days. It was amazing. And I had nothing but Airbnbs and I was by myself visiting my friends. And I thought to myself, oh, dude, this is pretty great. And so I'm just as guilty as everybody else. But my question to you is as simple as this. Chase what gives you energy. Whatever gives you energy will have you showing up as the best version of yourself, which will allow you to have everything that you want in your life. I have a girl that I help who, I don't want to get emotional, but we talked this morning, she's sober. She almost died twice, and she's lost 40 pounds, and she's got 3 young boys, and her parents have never worked out a day in their life. And because of her, they're working out and they've lost like 10 or 20 pounds, and her dad's eating well, and her young sons are working out, and she's off of her medicine. And I'm thinking to myself, like, only thing that changed was she decided that she was going to do better, and it's going to wind up changing like 8 people's lives.
Yeah.
And it's like, that's what it's about. Are you living the best version of your life that you can be living, and everything else will take care of itself?
Amazing. Austin, where can our listeners find you or reach out to you if they want to?
So austinlinney.com is where you can find the podcast and other stuff, but hit me up on LinkedIn or Instagram, Austin Linney. Shoot me a DM. Happy to talk to anybody, see how I can help or support or introduce you to somebody, just anything I can do to help you move forward.
Amazing. Thanks so much for taking the time. This is a great conversation. I hope to do it again soon, and we'll continue the conversation. I appreciate that and hope our listeners got a lot out of this as well.
Thank you so much, sir.
And until next time, remember, the best advice comes only when you ask. Real quick, I have one question for you. Did you like this episode? If you did, I want to ask you a huge favor. See, the biggest thing that helps this podcast grow and that will spread this message to the whole world is that if you leave a review, a rating, and subscribe to the podcast. What that does is it basically tells the platforms that this podcast is out on is that you like my stuff and I'm doing something right. So take a few seconds out of your day, hit that subscribe button, leave a rating or review. I would be extremely grateful. Also, I want to hear from you guys. So I want to hear some feedback. If you have any questions for future episodes, please find me on LinkedIn, send me a DM, a connection request, Yona Weiss, and I'd love to hear from you.